Brighton have won 4 of their last 5 Premier League games, and a big part of that turnaround has come down to one tactical tweak from Fabian Hürzeler. In recent weeks, Jack Hinshelwood has been pushed further forward into that number 10 role, and the impact has been clear. In this video, I'm breaking down why that switch has worked so well, how Hinshelwood's profile fits that role, and why it's helped transform Brighton's attacking structure. Welcome back to the Louis Selling YouTube channel. I am back once again, and it is the international break, so it felt like a good time to have a look at Brighton's recent run, those 4 wins in 5 Premier League games, and how Fabian Hürzeler has turned that awful form around from 1 win in 14-15 games. There has been 1 or 2 key factors, key players that have helped to do that, but the one we're looking at today is, of course, Jack Hinshelwood. But before we jump into it, this video, the structure of this video is going to be slightly different, slightly shorter, and I'm trying out a few different graphics and visuals before next season, where I'm hoping to get a consistent style, consistent structure to make the content as best as it can be. So let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments. So let's jump straight over to the media drawer, where we're going to look at a few examples from the wins against Brentford, Nottingham Forest, Sunderland, and of course, Liverpool. The first win of this fantastic run actually came away against Brentford at the G-Tech, a place where Brighton aren't usually that good. They're quite inconsistent and they don't pick up too many points. And this was the game really where Hurzeler decided to make these few tactical tweaks and play Hinshelwood as that number 10. This is the second goal of the game from Danny Welbeck on the stroke of half-time. Hinshelwood is this player in here. Really important to note, he is the number 10. That's the main thing you've got to think during this video. Quite a normal place for the number 10 to be, I think, in my opinion, in and around those gaps, picking up the pockets, which is something he does really, really well in all of these examples. The ball is here with Lewis Dunk, so everyone is kind of where you would expect them to be. Hinshelwood can see everything. The ball can come to him if needed. If we switch over to the next one, Hinshelwood has pulled away from his defender here to pick up that pocket of space, get him an extra yard if the ball does come into him after Lewis Dunk has switched it across the back line into Jean-Paul Van Hecke. He opens up this pass into here, or if he decides to come short, the ball can also come short into here, where he's moved back to open 2 pockets of space. But what he does do instead is he turns and is immediately direct. He's not really in this image, he's just off screen here. He's turned and he's pulled away to get in behind, which is something Brighton weren't doing before these games. Having Hinshelwood in here has allowed them to be slightly more direct and be a bit more ruthless and hit teams on the counter-attack over the top. Because Hinshelwood is more of a deeper midfielder, so he understands that physicality and those spaces, which has been really, really helpful. Hinshelwood pulls away, Van Hecke goes to play this long ball over the top as he decides to make that run, leaving a big pocket of space in here, which is really important because in other scenarios, this comes into play, which we will see a bit later. Ball comes over the top, Hinshelwood is now here beyond that back line. The left back in this situation isn't really going to be able to defend him too well because he's on the wrong side from the goal. He's past that centre back, so he's able to cut inside if he takes a good touch. Ball comes over, he takes a touch. It isn't the best of touches, it does bounce, but look at all that space he has in behind, as I said. If it is a good touch, he can bring it down and he can drive immediately towards goal. Isn't a good touch, but he still managed to make something of it. He plays that first time cross, kind of a hopeful cross, many people would think, but actually he puts it into a really, really good area. Welbeck is this player in here, his strike partner. Gomez in here as well. These 3 have been absolutely phenomenal in these games and have been one of, if not the main reasons for this turnaround in form. Gomez pulling off allows Hinshelwood to be slightly wider and make these runs. Welbeck in here, sitting deep, allows space to be in this area in here for Hinshelwood to then just put the ball in there. If you put it in a dangerous area, someone will get onto it eventually. The ball comes in. He puts it in a good area. As I said, it bounces and it should really be cleared away by Collins, and that should be the move over. And we think, yeah, it is a good ball from Hinshelwood. It's a very good run. Another day, Welbeck gets on the end of it and gets in front of his man. But Welbeck reacts well. It's awful defending in here from Collins. He makes an absolute meal of it. The ball falls to Danny Welbeck and he puts it past Kelleher from a few yards out. But this has all come from Hinshelwood making that direct run over the top. Van Heck picking him out deserves a lot of praise as well. His game has improved massively in these few weeks as well. He was still incredible, but his passing ability and his carrying ability have also been a big factor in these wins. And Hinshelwood making those runs which a Jorginho and a Kostelas weren't really making, because they're different players. They like coming in deep in these sort of areas, which we'll have a look at again in a minute, as I said, and then picking the ball up, turning with it and making those runs, and kind of being where Pascal Gross is in there. But Hinshelwood making those direct runs over the top, not being afraid to stretch that defence and play an ugly brand of football. Not that I think it is, but many people will. That counter-attacking style has meant that Brighton are able to score goals like these. And with a clinical striker like Danny Welbeck, who scored 12 this season, it means situations like these can happen and the ball will end up in the back of the net. The next example is from the game against Nottingham Forest. Jack Hinshelwood is the player in here. Again, he's pulled off a few yards away from that centre-back in here to allow him to have some space and time if the ball does come to him. Gross is on the ball over here, so Hinshelwood isn't really impacting play too much. Maybe you'd expect the 10 to be in this space in here, but by Hinshelwood dragging himself away from it, it opens up all of this for a Milner or a Gomez, who in here is the right winger, deeper, to come into these spaces from deep, from late, to make these darting runs and allow cutbacks to happen, which was a big part of Fabian Hürzeler's football at St. Pauli. Dare I say, we're kind of starting to see that style and that clinicality and the way he played at St. Pauli translate into this Brighton team, which is something Brighton fans have been crying out for so long. Go on to this next one. Hinshelwood is again this player on the edge of the box. This is just after, as you can see, Matoma has put a cross in. Hinshelwood is a player at the back post. He's pulled away from that centre-back and there's a decent bit of distance there, so he can backtrack. He's not got anyone around him and he can make something happen. Important to note, this is just after Brighton have conceded, so they're not afraid to go forward now. They want to get that second goal. They want to go back in front. They don't want to sit back and defend and try and stay compact after they've just conceded. Hinshelwood pulls off, as I said. He's positive, he's attacking, he wants to make something happen. All of this space in here now. Murillo's off balance. He's trying to turn. The ball's coming towards Hinshelwood rather than Hinshelwood going towards the ball, which makes a big difference. He's not having to adjust himself too much to make something happen, whereas Murillo in here is. The partnership between Welbeck and Hinshelwood, as I said, has been fantastic. These two in here, the distance there, they're quite close, which means that Murillo is kind of having to pick both up, but they're also far enough apart to make it difficult for him. They're causing overloads in these situations, which has been a big part. The ball comes to Hinshelwood. The ball is up here. He moves a few yards to get there, but he's set. He's ready to receive it, whereas the two Forest players are having to be on the move, having to adjust their body position. They're off balance, and it's going to be really hard to defend. Being in this position also means Hinshelwood has a few options. If the ball comes to him, which it does, he can either try and head it away or volley it away into here or here, a bit like Gomez did against Forest in here, or he can try and set it back to Danny Welbeck, or difficult pass, he can just try and knock it into this area in here where, as I said a minute ago, Gomez will be arriving. So from pulling away and opening that space and being intelligent and not rushing towards the ball like a lot of young players do, he opens himself up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options just from that one smart bit of play. The ball comes to him, he decides to head it back across to Danny Welbeck. Many people will probably think this is an easy thing to do, but it's not, because the two defenders are pretty close to each other. They could quite easily head it away, defend it, clear it if Hinshelwood just heads it straight back across. But what he does, he heads it down into the ground, which makes it impossible for Williams to clear because it's a bouncing ball. Really hard for Murillo to clear as well because it's bouncing back up, and he can easily slice it, slash it, and cause the ball to spin up in the air, miss-hit it, and it falls again in this massive pocket of space here, which Hinshelwood has opened up by pulling off to that back post. That clever header, that clever movement puts the ball in this situation for Danny Welbeck, who swivels, great touch, great finish, and puts it away. But this has all come from Hinshelwood using his football IQ, being clever, pulling off, which he did in that first example and this example now, and just knocking the ball down. It's simple football from Brighton. It's a long ball forward, nice bit of slick play in and around the box, put it out wide, put a cross into the box, and put it in that danger area. Something that the Seagulls weren't doing initially in that mid part of the season when their run was really, really bad. The next example comes from an away game against Sunderland. Hinshelwood is this player in here. I always start with the first phase of the attacking play. I think it's really, really interesting, really, really important to see where a player's initially start. You won't be surprised to hear and see that Hinshelwood has pulled away from his midfielder and stepped off of that centre-back to allow him a pocket of space in here. The ball is with Pascal Gross, so the ball comes to him. It allows this in here if Hinshelwood decides to come in here, or Gross takes a touch and spins it in there. He can drop deeper. So again, there's a few options just from being clever and pulling away into that space. Again, the ball does come to Gross. As I said, Hinshelwood is still in here. Look at how much space he has in here. A good few yards around him to try and make something happen. And he can see the whole game as well. He can see where Yankuba Minte is, he can see where the ball is, and he knows that Danny Welbeck is going to be around him because their partnership, their link-up has started to develop really, really well. He continues to stay in that space even when the ball does go out wide. He switched on to Ferdi Kadioglu in here, who's going to try and slot the ball down the line to Yankuba Minte. But Hinshelwood being in here has opened up so many possibilities. He can make this near post run in front of Alderete, or he can make that run behind him and try and catch him off guard, get him behind, which he does. And it's something he does again against Liverpool as well. This move is very, very similar to one we'll see at the end. So keep this one in mind. Minte, the ball comes down to him, and Hinshelwood decides to make that run in behind. Alderete can't see him because of his body position. He's having to keep an eye on Minte here. He has had a look-sees there, but as soon as Hinshelwood makes this run in behind, it's going to be really, really difficult to keep track of him. He's in front of Sadiki as well, so he's got to have a big change of pace to try and get in front of Hinshelwood and not give a foul away. Minte does really, really well, puts that quick, fast cross in. Hinshelwood is still in that space, that pocket between the midfielder and the defender in here and here. And he's opened up so much space in here. Welbeck pulling away has helped that as well. And Hinshelwood not being too eager, running around like a headless chicken, means that there's opportunities to put balls into these dangerous areas. Minte, all he has to do is put it into there in an area and someone will get on the end of it if the run is correct. It is from Hinshelwood. Still, not much has changed from here after Minte releases the ball. At all times, he's in between that midfielder and that centre-back, which means he has space, he has time to think and make something happen. It doesn't have to be the greatest of balls from Minte either, which helps because his end product sometimes hasn't been great this season, but recently it has, and again, he's been really, really important to this. The ball comes in here to Hinshelwood. Alderete has to do so much to try and defend this. If he hits it, he could end up spinning into his own net, or he gives a corner away. He can't really clear it back the way he come because of his body position. So from Hinshelwood going from here to here, in behind him, making that quick run makes it really, really hard to defend, and it's opened up all this pocket of space. He connects with it from a few yards out from goal. You can't really ask much more than your number 10 having a shooting opportunity from this. He should put it away in the back of the net, that is for sure, but it is a great save from the goalkeeper in here. As you will see, fantastic save. But Hinshelwood probably should put it away in this bottom corner. If we quickly have a look at his shot map from this season, there's quite a lot of shots in and around this area. He needs to be slightly more clinical. He's only scored one, which has actually come from the edge of the box. But picking up the ball in these positions, getting shooting opportunities from these positions, eventually he will put them away and he will score so many goals. If we flick over to his heat map as well, you will see and the edge of the D inside that box. There's a fair bit of red from these recent games where he's getting in these half spaces, these pocket of spaces where it's so difficult to pick him up. But if we flick over to this next example from Sunderland, which was just a few minutes later, you'll be able to see that shot map and the heat map in full play. The start of the move, the ball start with Bart Verbruggen in here. Not too much danger. Sometimes you'll expect your number 10 to drop into areas like this, but Hinshelwood is smart. He stays high. He's also almost playing as a false 9 alongside Danny Welbeck. Bart Verbruggen plays the ball into Milner, who plays it out to Matt Sweefer, spins it out. Really, really nice ball. And these movements, these going long to come short, is something that was really important against Sunderland in this game. Hinshelwood is just off screen in here, over here. Weaver plays a lovely first time left-footed spin ball through to Jack Hinshelwood, who is now this player in here. He knows he is offside. Really, really intelligent. He's checked that line, which means he can leave the ball. The ball is meant for him, but because he's smart, he's intelligent, he uses his brain, which a lot of young forwards haven't been doing. They've kind of a bit eager, as I said. They'll be offside and they'll continue to make that run. He just stands still, he stops, and he lets that ball go through to Danny Welbeck, which puts him into this position in here. He's in behind, and Welbeck should probably score from here. Look at all the space he has. Minte as well coming through there. But look at Jack Hinshelwood. He's let the ball go. He's not involved in play. He knows he's offside. But as soon as that ball's gone, he's immediately turning. Look at his body position. He's on. He's away. He wants to get in behind again and follow Welbeck and try and get in those spaces and make things happen. Between that defence and that midfield, again, really, really intelligent play. And by playing in that midfield quite a few times, and also as a defender, as a right back, in a left back, he knows where it's hard to pick players up from. So a lot of credit has to go to him, as well as Hurzeler, from knowing that he's going to know how difficult it is to pick up players by playing in those positions. But if we move the play on, Welbeck ends up taking it really, really wide for some reason. He makes that turn, but look at where Hinshelwood is in here. As I said, from the heat map, as you saw, that edge of the box is a place where he's been picking the ball up and where he's been a lot in recent games, this season as a whole, but especially this last month or so. And from being deeper and then coming forward and not initially being in that high position, it opens up all of this space in here. In front of that midfielder, again, behind the back line, it's opened up so much space on the penalty spot. Welbeck puts the ball into here, in this area in here. Welbeck puts the ball there. Hinshelwood makes his run. And again, this is exactly where you want your number 10, picking the ball up and putting in those shots. This is where he connects with it in here, as you can just see. He should put it away into this corner, but he does scuff it and it goes straight into the goalkeeper's hands. But it's the thought, it's that movement from letting the ball go, being intelligent, and then continuing a run to open these bits of space, these pockets of space, and then finding the run to connect with the ball at the right time. This is what Hurzeler is asking. This is what he's been begging and crying out for the last few weeks and months leading up to this. So yes, he didn't score these two opportunities, but he's getting in the right positions, and sooner or later he will put the ball away. But the final example is one from the Liverpool game. Exactly the same pretty much as the first Sunderland example, where the ball is put across from Minte. Just Welbeck here and Hinshelwood have swapped sides. Hinshelwood, unsurprisingly, is a few yards away from the midfielder, from the left back and from the centre back. So he's picking up these pockets of space. As the number 10, you'd maybe expect him to be in here, but left back Hadioglu is doing that role. So Hinshelwood knows that he can be slightly higher, slightly further away. Gross puts that ball into Minte, and Hinshelwood is still this player in here, hanging off the back of Van Dijk. He can see all the play, so he knows whatever ball's played, he has a run that can be made. If the ball comes into the middle, he can drop in here, or if it is a cross, he can come here, or he can even make that run in front. But from being behind Van Dijk, it means he can't see him. Hinshelwood can, and he can manipulate his run depending on what Van Dijk does and depending what Minte does. Fantastic ball from Minte in this position. Very, very similar to the Sunderland one. Just put the ball into an area in the box. The keeper can't come out if it's far enough away, and the defence have to track back and try and clear it. And it could end up anywhere in the own net. A throw in, a corner, so it's a fantastic ball. But Hinshelwood is still off the back of Van Dijk in here. Very, very important. Still hanging off the back of Van Dijk, in front of the fullback, in front of the midfielder. So from those few passes, his position doesn't really change. It's just slightly more advanced. Minte, as I said, puts a fantastic ball into the box. The ball is now here. Hinshelwood is still behind Van Dijk, but because Van Dijk can't see him and he's only got eyes for the ball, it means that Hinshelwood knows from hanging off of him that he can make this run in behind. And if the ball does come through, does get missed by Van Dijk, he is there and he has an open net to basically put the ball in, because it would have to be a fantastic save by the keeper to react quickly from looking to his right to his left. Gets past Van Dijk, the ball bounces, and he's now in this position. And this, again, is a position you would absolutely love your midfielder, your number 10, to be in a few times a game. You probably expect him to try and get a shot away and put it in there. But again, he's intelligent, he's smart. Mamardashvili has had the game of his life so far. He's made some absolutely fantastic saves to keep this from being 3 or 4 to Brighton. Hinshelwood decides to put the ball back across to Danny Welbeck. It is slightly risky because of that offside line, but Welbeck does really, really well just to decelerate for half a second to make sure he stays behind that ball. Hinshelwood does really, really well to get his side foot on it, as you can see in here. Uses the side of his foot really, really cleverly just to put it back across the goal. A proper FIFA goal if you've played it before. A sweaty goal to put it into Danny Welbeck, to put it into that empty net. So just from Minte putting that ball in the box, Hinshelwood hanging off the defender in these situations here, picking up those pockets of space where you don't expect the players to be, which is something that Hurzeler liked his number 10 to do at St. Pauli. Giving him a bit more licence to go forward and get in the box means that from here, the ball in the box puts him into this position here. Very, very similar to the Sunderland one. This one just led to a goal. So that is just a few examples from these 4 wins in the last 5 games. But as you can see, Hinshelwood has played a pivotal role in that, and he's build up and changing that attacking structure, allowing Brighton to be a bit more direct and Minte and Matoma to put balls into the box. And it also gives Welbeck a bit of support, because a lot of games before this, Villa, West Ham, he was very, very isolated. So Hinshelwood is one of, if not the main factors for this turn in form. But that is it for this video. Slightly shorter today, 20 minutes rather than the 35-40 minute ones. Let me know what you think on them. Do you prefer the longer ones where there's a bit more detail, talking a bit more about the stats, looking at the tactics board as well? Or do you just like this media drawer one, looking at the examples and then using the stats over where, and the heat map and the shot map where they are necessary and come important? But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But as I said, Jack Hinshelwood has been one of the main reasons for Brighton's turns in fortune. I don't know if his long-term future is there, because I do see him dropping slightly deeper to be that number 8 when Pascal Gross's time at the Seagulls comes to an end, when he decides to retire. But that is not going to be for a few years. But Hinshelwood definitely stays here for the next 7 games. You also have to consider Jorginho Rutter, Brian Gruder, Babis Kostas. They're going to be wanting that number 10 spot. So it'll be competition, but we will see what happens. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share the video, do whatever you want with it. You know the outro by now. Do it with me. Adios.